Dear brothers, it's about quality, not quantity.
So guys, it should be your conversation, the way you flow, your presence is enough for a woman to want to be around you, not how much money you spend.
Dear sisters, it's about knowing your value.
My sisters out there, don't be afraid to scare a guy off just because you have standards.
Dear brothers, dear sisters, it's time to come together.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to DBDS Live. I'm your host, Carl Surratt, aka Carl, the Accountability Coach. We're joining the most wonderful, no pondering, no pandering. We're gonna give you a solution to the problem show out here. I'm joined by my amazing co-host, my sister, my baby sister from another. Miss Cameron, how you doing, Cam?
I'm great. How's it going, Carl?
I'm doing good. Still trying to recover from this leg injury, but
oh goodness,
it's doing way better. I have to realize I'm not 25. I'm 53, and it takes a little longer to heal.
What they say, age ain't nothing but a number. Come on.
It is. I'm still trying to run back out here too quick, but no, we're doing good. How are things going in your neck of the woods?
Great. Just taking advantage of this holiday season, slowing down, being present and engaged with family and friends even more so than I am during the remainder or the rest of the year. But just sitting back and being grateful for everything that I have. So yeah, how about you?
Awesome. I didn't get home for Thanksgiving, but I got to spend it with an amazing family, so
yes.
Which was great. And so I will get in Christmas, hopefully see my boys, and continue with that. But yeah, you mentioned something, spending time with family. And I think so many of us get caught up in this hustle and bustle.
Yes.
And looking for the right gifts and the right trinkets and all this stuff, instead of realizing, regardless whatever your belief system is, that it should be about family and enjoying the gift of family, the gift of love, the gift of family, and just having that quality time, because I'm telling you, this year flew by so fast. And
it really did. Yeah, absolutely. It flew by. And, when you talk about family, family isn't always blood.
Right.
Like you and Mel, y'all are part of my family. I see y'all as brothers. I've even come to you all for advice on certain things, and I'm appreciative of both of you. And so that's one thing I'm grateful for.
Amazing. So, but awesome. So we're gonna touch base. We're gonna shift a little bit on the show. This is not our normal topic,
right?
But it's needed. We're going to talk about the mental health of children and how it affects the family dynamic. And I think the one thing, especially within our community, mental health is frowned upon. People don't want to be stereotyped or stigmatized. They don't want anything to look like that. And then they, so they shy away from it, especially as men. And so any men males that are listening and men that are listening right now, young men, old men, get you a therapist, get you a good quality therapist, get you a good life coach.
Right.
I'm hoping to have some slots available next year, take some more on. But that's what I do with my, it's needed. And I mean, even though I do it, I still have my own coach and my own therapist still. So I don't give them up, because you'll never stop growing. You never stop healing. Just like this knee injury I have, it's gotten better and it's healing, but it will never be 100%. I will always have to do some type of therapy or some type of exercise to keep it going. So Prayerfully no surgery, but sometimes you gotta, in therapy, you gotta have surgery. You know, sometimes you gotta cut away at a situation to get there. So so when it comes to mental health in our community, I feel like it's an issue, and I feel like for men it's even more stigmatized because it means like something's wrong with you. But I feel like avoiding it means you have a bigger issue. You know, what is your take on today's topic?
Oh, well, I mean, you all, and I've always been an advocate for therapy. I myself have been in therapy, and actually prior to getting married, we did premarital counseling, both within the church and outside of the church. And, you know, during the marriage, got to a point where we needed it, and to the point that eventually it was like, you know what, we're just better off being separate. 2 single happy parents raising 2 amazing children. And in that space and time, I myself personally did 18 months straight, like every week, once a week for 18 months straight. I was in my therapist's office, and the best thing I could have ever done, the best gift I could have ever given myself. Because, you know, I was heading into a space that I'd never been there before, and no one in my family had been in. So I couldn't go to my family to ask for guidance. I had to go to a professional, and I didn't blink an eye. I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. This is for me.
Right. So it's just like an apology. You know, it's not for you. It's not for them. It's for you.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's the same thing with therapy. So, but we're going to go ahead and jump in and bring our guest on board because we got a couple of good topics we definitely want to get to and have a good quality discussion. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. That helps us out. And for you guys that are watching also Facebook Live, share your comments, questions. This is a good time. We're going to try to take as many questions as we can, as many comments as we can during this particular episode, because like I said, again, it's not the normal, but if we're trying to build healthy relationships and healthy communities, we have to have mentally healthy people doing that. And that's going to start even with our children. So
absolutely.
So you ready to bring our guest on board?
Let's do it.
All right. So coming in first, she has been on several times. She has a background as a therapist, and she always leaves some of the greatest gems. Coming in, our sister, and I won't say where she's from because she can say it, but our baby sister, Miss Latoya.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Latoya, how are you?
I'm well.
Good. We've got some new people watching tonight, and so just tell people a little bit about yourself, where you're from, why you're on the show.
Yes. So my name is Latoya Watson. I'm a licensed therapist, wellness consultant, speaker, and I'm really, really passionate about mental health, especially with our teens. So I'm happy and honored to be joining you all.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
I didn't say where I'm from.
Where you from?
So I'm from Connecticut, but I am now in Houston.
H-Town. She is my neighbor. I moved right behind her. So we're neighbors down in H-Town. So that is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So let's bring our next guest. Brother, he's been on before, very knowledgeable, has worked in, done a lot of work with young people and within the school system and stuff like that. So I'm gonna bring him in, let him drop some jewels on there. My brother, Eric, how you doing?
I'm okay. How's everybody doing? Good evening.
Great. Hey.
Good, brother E. Hey, so like I said, we got some new people watching tonight. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and why you're on the show?
Well, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I've been living in the South for the past almost 20 years. I'm an author, and right now, what I've been doing is I have 2 books out, and the first one is Does Anyone See My Pain for teens? Then I have another book related to educational leadership called Nurturing Leadership. So those 2 books is taking up my time in terms of presenting and just trying to be a positive force in a very, very dark world. So that's been my life's mission for the past 30 years.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And for those of you watching, I tell you, grab a book, read a book, whether it's on your tablet. On your tablet, and get off IG, get off OnlyFans, get off Facebook. Read a book. When's the last time you read a book? I mean, seriously, read a book. And there's so many different things out there, because a lot of times we say, well, I can't do this, I can't do that. But I'm just encouraging you, read a book and watch how the world opens up for you out there. So, but enough said on that. We're going to go ahead and bring up our first subtopic and jump on into this. So the very first subtopic for tonight is going to be, could our parenting style affect our children's mental health? So let me set this real quick. So when you think about it, you're parenting your children, and a lot of times we hear, I won't say, we hear, sometimes you hear people say, I'm doing the best I can do. And we get that. So is the best what you're doing affecting how your child is? Are your unhealed wounds from your childhood affecting your child? Are the things that you are experiencing in your unwillingness to seek help, counsel, therapy, how is that coming in? How are your children picking that up? Because we talk about energy, it transfers. So just because we say, well, the children they're too young to understand, or they're too young to really comprehend what's going on, they feel when mommy's upset and they feel when daddy's upset. And how does that negatively affect them? So we really have to be conscious about how we're parenting with that. So, so coming to Miss Latoya first, what are your thoughts on how parenting styles could possibly affect our children's mental health?
Okay, so first I want to start off just by sharing a little bit about what our children and teens go through, the pressures that they go through. Because I think sometimes we will say like, oh, what problems do they have, or their children, or they don't have as much demands as we have, right? And so I'll just go through and share some of the top things that I found when I was doing some research, because when I work with teens, I've heard so many different things, but I'm just going to share some of the most common things that I found. Some teens really feel stressed about when they think about their future, especially when they're in high school or even in middle school, the pressure about feeling like they have to get it right. Check on those of any teens that who are the straight A students. They sometimes feel a lot of pressure and demand. Our star athletes feel a lot of pressure. Those who are in shows, performances, gymnastics, they feel a lot of pressure to do well. Going along with that, when teens or children have very jam-packed schedules and it doesn't allow a lot of time for free time or fun or just to hang out with their friends, there's a lot of bullying that goes on in person, online. Social media is huge for that. Monitor your kids' social media accounts. They also worry about things that we worry about, like wars going on, different community issues, politics, school shootings. discrimination issues. I could go on and on and on. Poverty, money, housing, not enough food. So I really just wanted to just set that tone first, before talking about parenting styles. Um, Definitely, when I think about parents who I'll start with, who may be a little bit more passive, that definitely could impact our children, where sometimes parents who are a little bit more passive or not as involved, children will sometimes feel that their parents don't care, or, it's it just, it can really impact children and teens differently. And then I'll go on the next extreme, parents who may be more aggressive or more overly involved, constantly monitoring. And I'm not saying this in a judgmental way. It just is what it is, how we all parent differently. That depending on the child that you have, if your child may be more sensitive, they can really internalize all of the different emotions. Or if you are a parent who's often loud or very expressive with your emotions, again, it depends on your child's temperament, how they may internalize that. So I said a lot, but yes, I will end with saying parenting styles can impact our children, and making sure to communicate with your children your intentions can be really helpful.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Brother Eric, same question. How do you feel, or do you feel parenting styles can affect our children's mental health? And especially, like I said, with the book you have, I mean, what have you heard from some young people that I know you interviewed for that book?
Mm-hmm. I just want to expound on what Miss Latoya just said. Um, they're very concerned about their academic performance. I would say, to answer the question, yes, words have power. And if your child is constantly hearing, you're never going to amount to anything, you're dumb, you're stupid, they're planting seed, and then they're going to start feel the pressure, and they start to think about what was said to them. So yes, I do think that one of the things that I'm very proud of is when my three daughters, who are now adults, lived in the home with me. They never heard me call them out. They never heard me call them stupid, dumb. They never heard me say something like, "You never got it right." And they are doing very well as adults because I raised them the way my parents raised. And my parents, I hear those words from them. I can call my mom right now and act like I'm sad, and my mom would say, "What is your name?" And she'll ask me that question because the name Eric means king. So she'll say, "Go out there and act like." So that's what I grew up with. Okay, so I would just say yes. It can. You have to be very careful with words and your actions when you're talking to children.
Appreciate that, brother. Definitely appreciate that. Great insight on there. Miss Cameron, coming to you. What are your thoughts? And I know you deal with the kids in a lot of different arenas,
Yeah.
young people. So, what is your thoughts on how parenting styles affect our children's mental health?
So, I just want to educate the audience on the different parenting styles. And if you don't know what your parenting style is, maybe you'll hear it in what I'm about to say. And you could go online, you can Google parenting styles. There are quizzes out there, and you can take the quiz and find out what your parenting style is. Because at the end of the day, a lot of us, those of us who are parents, I'll speak for me, when we got a child, we're raising our children based on how. how we were raised.
Mhm.
However, that isn't necessarily what our children need. So
Mhm.
the first parenting style is authoritarian. Kids should be seen and not heard. I don't know about you, but that's actually a phrase that I heard growing up. And not just from
Mhm.
my parents, but from my grandparents and the adults
Mhm.
outside of my family.
Mhm.
When it comes to rules, it's my way or the highway. Kids' feelings are not taken into consideration. So with the authoritarian style, a child is at a higher risk of developing self-esteem problems because their opinions are not valued. The second style is permissive parenting. You set rules, but rarely enforce them. You don't give out consequences very often. You think your child will learn best with little interference from you. So it's kind of loosey goosey, inconsistent. This creates a lot of confusion for children because at the end of the day, they're a child. They don't have the adult life experiences that we have as parents. And so a child who grows up with that kind of parenting style or parents who parent like that, they're more likely to struggle academically. The last, well, it's not the last, but it's the third. Uninvolved parenting. I don't think there really needs to be much of an explanation about it, but you don't ask your child about school or homework. You rarely know where your child is or who they're with, and you don't spend much time with your child.
Mm.
That's pretty explanatory. These children have a host, or they're at risk for a host of concerns or issues: self-esteem, low academic, um, higher risk of being involved with peers who engage in behaviors such as uh, sex, drugs, weapons, those kind of things. They're looking to belong, to be heard, to be seen. The fourth parenting style is authoritative. Now it sounds like authoritarian, but here's how it shakes out. A lot of effort is put into creating and maintaining a positive relationship with your child. You explain the reasons behind your rules. You set limits, enforce rules, and give consequences, but you take your child's feelings into consideration. These children are more likely to become responsible adults who feel comfortable self-advocating and expressing their opinions and feelings.
Mm.
That's
Woo.
yeah. So that's pretty much that.
Mm. Okay.
So
I
you see
appreciate
how each style impacts the style differently. There's impact, but it's different impact.
Yeah, I think that's something too. We definitely need to put into the group. Following this, a lot of the parenting style or link that they can do that. So, just a
Mhm.
quick follow up question to you, Kim. And I'll ask Eric and Latoya also follow up behind you. Do you think some children there's added stress, anxiety, depression to live up to a parent's expectation of them that a parent puts on them? Do you think a lot of children struggle with that?
Yes, for the parents who, so for those of you who don't know, I work at a school that's on the campus of a mental health facility for adolescents. I've been doing this work. I've been in this field for 22 years now. So I've seen a shift, as you can say, in terms of children. not so much parenting. The parenting is kind of like stayed the same. It's the children that are evolving and shifting. But at the end of the day, the children are reflecting society at large. So, with the increase of increasing influence of social media, that voice is starting to become louder than, say, a parent's. They're competing, so to speak. And so it's like, what's happening in the house has to be the louder voice, basically. But to go back to your question, Carl, for parents who operate in an over-controlled manner, yes, those children are the ones who are struggling the most. They may present on the outside straight A's, like perfect, everything, but everything is internal. They are beating themselves up on the inside to maintain appearance on the outside.
Man, that's good. I appreciate that. Eric, your thoughts on that? Do you think, like I said, young people are struggling with depression, anxiety, living up to their parents' expectations that are placed upon them?
I would say, yeah, that's a possibility. That's again, it goes to the wording of how you parent. My parents always said to me, as long as you've done your best, that's all you can do. So if I came with a C grade, my parents didn't get upset with that because they saw me study the work. And I just think that you have to know your child and you have to talk to your child, get them to understand, it's okay as long as you're putting forth the effort, then, me and you, we are okay. And I think that conversation has to be had with children because children will put, like my daughter that's in college, she puts a lot of pressure on herself, but she knows that it's not me that's and she's putting pressure on herself. But I always tell her, just do the best you can. That's the only thing you can do in life. Just do the best you can. And if there's no failure in a C. As long as you can lay your head down and say that you've done the best you can, then you're okay. So yes, I think when parents are talking about academics, they have to kind of come at them in that type of way so that it can be relieve that stress, anxiety, and they know that mom and dad is still gonna look at me, love me the same way if I came home with a C.
And just before I come to you, Latoya, and see, that's my thought process. I know being someone that's played sports, been around sports, coached sports for years, well, almost my whole life. I look at that and I see this from an athletic side of the field where there are parents that are pushing their kids to be, the next Tiger Woods, the next LeBron James, the next, whatever, the greatest this, Tom Brady, whatever you want to call them. And I really feel like a lot of kids are under added pressure instead of being able to enjoy the game, play the game, and develop. These kids have no life outside of sports. They're 24/7. They're going, to this clinic, that clinic, this workout place and stuff. And I think, and I speak this, like I said, as a father of two sons, I coached and we had fun doing it. There's moments when coach and player, we would have odds, but I enjoyed coaching my sons and they enjoyed having me as a coach because I realized that they're still young. They're going to make mistakes and they're still growing. But I watched other coaches who would just literally grab their kids and throw them around the field. They're cussing them out, walking them to the car, as added stress. And I'm thinking that's not how you parent. And this is why you see a lot of kids, they just walk away from the game because they don't love it anymore. It's now become a job at 12 years old.
Right.
Because I think, and then you have some of these dads that are trying to live their dreams, hopes and dreams through their children because, lack of a word, they didn't make it. I won't say what I wanted to say, but they didn't make it. So now they want to live it through their children. But Coming to you, Latoya, what is your view? Do you think there are some kids that struggle with the expectations their parents have on them?
I do. And I agree with what's also been said. I have seen where teens, young adults, where they put the pressure on themselves. And here's something that I would suggest for parents. It is okay to check in and ask them, like, we'll use sports, for example, like, do you still enjoy this? Do you have fun still playing? And being okay with if they say, no, I don't. Because I agree, Carl, I have seen oftentimes where the parents, whether it's they're trying to live through their kids, um, or there's just a strong passion for them to do well, to succeed, to make it to the NBA, NFL. Um, and yeah, so we really have to stop and do, I think, self reflect and have some conversations heart to heart with our children.
That's good. I like that. Check in with your child.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, check in with your child. I mean, like, it's just, I guess you could say the same thing if they're playing music instruments, if they're in, arts and drama, they're taking ballet, they're on these, I don't want to say it the wrong way, these dance teams, I guess cheer teams or dance teams, little girls are on and all this stuff. Just the looking at some of their faces, these young people, sometimes I'm like, are they really enjoying this stuff? Right. And you feel bad. So, but we're gonna go ahead and jump into. We got a bunch of people commenting, so we're gonna bring up our very first comment here.
The older I get, the more I realize how emotionally neglected I was as a child. But I was always told how good I had it because I was spoiled with presents. And I'll admit I was. But all the material goods in the world don't mean anything if you think you are worthless and a burden in the eyes of your family and yourself. Absolutely.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, next. Oh, that's Joanna.
Can you
see my comment?
Yeah, we see it. I was pretty much neglected as a child due to my parents being very harsh and busy with work. I always had all the things I've wanted as a child, and I was being taken care of when needed. So yeah, I could say a two out of three or 2/3 on point. I am today chronically anxious and always overthinking. Hug your kids, people. And I just want to tell this viewer that, you are not your past, and, there's beauty in forgiving and knowing that you are worthy. We don't always have to hear that we're worthy from the outside. Of course, when we're a child, that's what we want. But as we move into adulthood, it's now on us to do that. And you are worthy and you are lovable.
Amen. Yep, absolutely. Next comment.
Very touching show, DBDS, and it's emotional watching this show. As a neglected child, I experienced poor parenting. The worst thing is if you become a dysfunctional adult due to the above mentioned reasons. It's very difficult to communicate this to other people. And people are not usually kind anyway. I have been humiliated so much for my antisocial traits. I didn't choose to be this person. My life experience made me so. I am a single child and come from an okay income family where my mother worked full time and father was at home. He wasn't ready to deal with my responsibility, so I mainly stayed in daycares and boardings. Wasn't able to build a bond with either parent. Was abused at daycares and boarding. Had no friends or a sibling. What kind of wholesome adult would I have grown into?
Wow.
So I'm hearing a lot of self-judgment here. And my question would definitely be, are you in therapy? That would be because that's a lot. That's a lot right there.
It is. Latoya, you want to weigh in on?
Yeah, I also recommend speaking to someone. And I just want to say, as Cameron said before to the other guests, your past does not define you.
Right.
You can still change, you can still heal. I know sometimes people can't see that because of so much that they've gone through. And once you start to seek professional help, things will get better. Things will get better. So stay encouraged.
Absolutely.
Eric, anything you want to add to this for them?
I just agree with everyone else. There's no shame in therapy. I've experienced going to therapy, and it has made a huge difference in my life. So that's what I would recommend to the person that wrote this comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You are lovable too. I promise. You are worthy.
I agree. And I didn't experience therapy until I was going through my divorce 7 years ago. So, I look at that and I wish, and this is to hope to encourage others, I wish I was going to therapy when I was even younger. Doesn't mean I necessarily had to have it or need it, but there are things I know where I was at and things I struggle with. I wish if I had somebody to talk to at 19 and 20 years of age, going to college and then being in the military, being in combat, and seeing things I wish I would have really took a hold of therapy and what it could do for me. I know what it has done for me now, and I wonder how much further along I would be today if I would have started 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
So, next comment.
The neglect isn't always intentional either. Exactly. For example, a mother who was abused through her childhood might not know how to connect with her child emotionally. Or a man who works long hours to provide for his family might not have time to connect with his child. These are difficult because the parent is meeting the physical needs of the child and does love the child, but the emotional neglect runs deep. Yeah, that's a great point to bring up. But also it speaks to the power that a parent holds in a child's life, that it's not just about the physical needs. It's not just about putting the roof over the head, food on the table, clothes on their back, shoes on their feet. Sometimes that emotional piece, if that's not in place, everything else can go out the window.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't always throw money at our children, y'all.
Nope. So we're going to take one more comment and then we're going to take a commercial break here.
Great topic.
Awesome. We appreciate you guys. Look, continue to send your comments, your questions. And, trust me, everybody, we appreciate every comment you guys are putting in there. We definitely are here to support you guys.
Absolutely.
And you can, if you go to www.dearbrothersdearsisters.com, there's a way to actually link into some of the coaches that we have available and schedule a session there too. So, I don't know the availability of other counselors and stuff with that, but definitely somebody's here to help you guys out, just to try to even point you in the right direction of how to navigate the beginning stages of finding somebody who can get you guys going on the right journey. But as everybody said, you all are definitely lovable. Don't ever let anybody tell you that.
Absolutely.
But we're gonna go ahead and take a quick commercial break. Don't go nowhere. This is DBDS Live.
My brother, Carl the Coach, contributed a chapter to an anthology. I got it in the mail this morning, so it means it was probably delivered yesterday, but I saw it today. Look, I already done read this much. Okay, don't judge me. All right, some of y'all get distracted by foolishness. At least I'm reading. Okay, look. this, for my ladies who are dating with purpose, for you who are working on yourself and you looking for a man who's working on himself, this your cheat code. This your book right here. You need this book right here. When I tell you they giving us all the goods, they spilling all the tea in this book. They telling us how to love them, how to respect them, how to be their peace, how to be their safe space.
You and I, we talk all the time, and really, man, I just give much love and appreciation to you for founding DBDS and starting it, man, because it's not normal. There's so much banter back and forth, and just like you and I talked about earlier, before we got on, who's going to raise the white flag first?
Hey! That's beautiful.
Hi, I'm so excited. This is my first Queen Takeover. Usually I'm in with the fellas, but I'm excited today.
Once again, I want to thank this amazing panel and much love to the DBDS family.
Mel, take it away.
Mel. All right, welcome back to DBDS Live. Erica will be joining us in a moment. Okay. I'm here with my co-host Cameron and our guest Latoya. We just have an amazing discussion tonight. Tough discussion, tough topic, but it's one of these things that you have to do sometimes. Everything can't just be about Cheesecake Factory and 50-50 and twerking. I mean, we got to have real conversations,
right?
But and just a tip. You saw the Queen Takeover we're talking about in there. Next week, Sunday will be the next Queen Takeover on DBDS Live. So amazing topic with our sisters. It'll also be our last show of the season, and then we'll be back after Super Bowl Sunday. But you can catch all the past episodes for the last 3 years on if you go to YouTube channel and go to DBDS Live on there. You'll be able to catch the past episodes. And join the Dear Brothers Dear Sisters group on Facebook. I'm telling you, we have some interesting conversations. We really try to make sure it stays respectful and everybody's opinion is respected.
Right.
But again, I think that's one of the things missing is being able to have emotionally mature conversations without arguing. We can agree to disagree, but trust me, I will boot somebody out the group for name calling and going off. I don't care. Because again, we're trying to grow together as a people. We're not trying to divide. We're trying to get rid of this war, the battle of the sexes. So, so we're going to go ahead and jump into our next topic and dealing with teen depression and anxiety. And before we kind of roll into that, I'm going to go ahead and play a quick video clip, and then I'll kind of set the stage for that with that.
Depression and anxiety, and also just feeling like I'm not good enough, feeling like people aren't going to accept me for what I am.
Anxiety and embarrassment are the top of the list of very intense emotions that I deal with.
Well, I had anger and heartbreak were the main ones.
Being insecure about myself, like the way I look and like my body size.
I feel like just like alone, and I feel like nobody can understand what I'm going through.
It just kind of feels like I'm like this twig that's a walking twig that just goes anywhere and everywhere.
It's just like emptiness, like a gap, like kind of just like is gone away from my body or so.
You just want to scream, and it's like your life is all one big puzzle.
Whew. That's a tough watch.
Yes, that's tough.
That's a tough watch. Oh boy, excuse me.
Yeah.
But yeah, to hear these kids thinking that way about themselves and feeling like they have no one to talk to, no one to turn to, because you're not supposed to have these feelings. You're not supposed to be thinking this way. You're just a kid. You're living, you got a house, roof over your head, you got food. So what are you actually worried about? Right. Not understanding how high the teenage suicide rate is, how bad bullying is. And then tell people this, bullying, a lot of the bullies are suffering from anxiety and depression. That's why they're bullying. They just found they're out.
Right.
It's unfortunate. They literally found they're out. So, as we talk about teen depression and anxiety, my thought process here is, and become my brother Eric first, especially talking with the book, what are some signs also for parents to be looking for? What are some or adults, it's not even just the parents, but adults, we need to get back to community parenting. I grew up where if I did something wrong, and I was a good kid, but if I did something wrong, I can get a whooping from one corner of the street to the other end of the street. It wasn't like my parents would look at my neighbor and say, "Hey, well, why didn't you get him? What you call me for?" So it was not that we respected everybody on the street because you knew they were going to your parents. Right. But now everybody's so worried about, I don't want you talking to my child. And this is why these kids don't have anybody to turn to, because I knew if my parents weren't going to listen to me, they did, but I also knew I had neighbors I could go knock on their door and say, "Hey, can I talk to you?" My neighbors were auntie and uncles.
Yeah.
And I could go knock on that door and I could talk to them and say, "Hey, I'm going through this." And if I needed them, and some of the kids on the street, if they needed to, they would come even talk to my parents and then take my parents to their parents so my parents could sit down with them so they could talk to their parents. That doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And that's it's unfortunate where we're at. But Eric, just talking about, that the teen depression and anxiety, and what are some signs for adults to look at, because it doesn't show up in a child the way it shows up in an adult.
Right. I would say their sleeping patterns. They're not sleeping as much. They're sad. They're not really interested in going out and doing different types of things. And as far as anxiety, there's different forms of anxiety. There's the emotional changes that teens are going through, the feeling on the edge and difficult and concentrating. And then there's the social interaction where they are not interacting with their friends. That was a hard thing to watch. One of the most powerful things that my parents did, my mom did, I grew up in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and we had a community. We were all friends. And like Carl said, the parents, we all looked out for each other. And my mom had the idea to do a rap session. And I'm looking at all my friends, in the kitchen. They're sitting in the kitchen. They're sitting in the living room. We laugh and joke and talk. Nobody had anything to say. And my mom said, "Okay." She says, "I'll wait." She says, "Because I know you have something to say." After the first person talked, it didn't stop for the next 3.5 hours. We talked about sex. We talked about bullying. We talked about peer pressure. We talked about alcohol and drugs, and this was right around the height of, when crack started to infiltrate the neighborhood. And I share that story because we have to give these teens a safe space to talk. We have to give them a safe space where they're not being judged. I read an article in the New York Times, and a young lady, because they said teen girls are going through depression more than boys.
Yeah.
So the article was about girls, was simply about teen girls. And she said, it seems like when we go and try to talk to adults, it's oh, you're just a teen. These are that teens go through. And that's not what they should be hearing. They have to be heard. They have to be heard. And I would say that any parent, in my book, I started the book off with talking to parents to say, look, with all the things that these kids are dealing with, I didn't worry about going to school and it being a mass shooting in my school 40 years ago. Okay. I was not involved in a national teacher shortage, but the quality of education is not the same, because depending on the state that you're living in, they have lowered the requirements to become a teacher just to put bodies in the classroom.
Right.
These are things that I didn't have. There was no social media. I didn't have to deal with cyberbullying because there was no social media. So when you look at all of these different things, and I want to add more and more, as a former educator, I have to say this: they have made education tremendously difficult with all of the assessments, the benchmarks, the standardized tests. All of these things add to these kids' anxiety. Okay, so we have to consistently check in on them. We have to take them, just take them out. Let them go to the movies, do something. And throughout my book, I talk about coping skills. You have to realize, how are these kids coping? What are they doing to cope? And coping skills has been a part of my life for the past 30 years. So, and that's the reason why I wrote the book. And I wanted to share enough of my personal experiences using coping skills and how valuable it has and it still is in my life today.
Appreciate that, brother.
Okay.
Woo, thank you. And he's talking, very coming to you next, Latoya. One of the things I think about too is a lot of these kids, you talk about how they're coping with it. A lot of these kids are coping with the pills, with drugs, joining gangs, having sex. They're looking for something of some type of outlet and acceptance. And we're not, and again, as parents, they're not paying attention to those things. You're not realizing, hey, why are these boys joining a gang? Because there's a level of acceptance. Somebody's there to listen to them. Even if it's the wrong means of it, that's what they're doing it for. Or they're turning, like I said, they're turning into pills and drugs. Take something because they're trying to take the edge off, or alcohol. That's why you see all these different medications that are locked up in the cases now in certain what do they call, allergy medicines and things that are locked up behind the counters in the drug pharmacies and all the drugstores and pharmacies, because the kids are using those things, and that's stuff that you have to pay attention to. If you're buying a cleaning solution every week and you were buying it once a month, you might need to check and see where that cleaning solution's going. I think that's not what parents, I think that's something, again, parents need to be paying attention to with that. So, Latoya, same thing to you. What are some signs that you think dealing with the depression and anxiety of kids, that for us as adults, we could look at and identify?
Yes. In addition to what Eric mentioned, I also want to mention any self-harming behaviors, cuts, bruises, specifically more on the wrists are more common. However, some kids will do it on their legs or their thighs to hide. And, going along with that, another sign I would say is, let's say it's summer and your child's always wearing layers, or where you can't see their arms or their legs. That's also a sign that there could be some self-harming behaviors. Something else that I would add on, and Eric touched upon this with friends, not wanting to spend as much time, canceling plans, even changing friends, if you notice. Now, some of this, it really requires you to be an involved parent. And I will say, so I didn't share. So my son now is 22. So I've kind of been through the adolescent stage, and it was not easy. So kudos to all the parents out there, because I remember. And I will say, I encourage parents to check your kids' rooms, even if you don't suspect things. Checking their phones, checking social media. I talk about this a lot. Checking their rooms. You may find things. And it's not always easy, but I remember checking my son's phone, and I saw his friend was like sharing suicidal thoughts, so I called the school and all of these things, just so a counselor could check in on him. But there's just so much, there's so much that you could miss. And I miss things even as a therapist. And it's just, kids can be creative, kids can be sneaky, I will say. But it's so essential to be involved, ask questions. And if they don't want to be open, then you do need to do a little bit more digging, because sometimes they will give one word answers. Staying in their rooms for extended period of time could also be a sign of depression. And I haven't really talked much about signs of anxiety, but I'll just share quickly. If you ever see like them overthinking, ruminating thoughts, constantly talking about the same thing, worrying if they don't accomplish something, will it like ruin their lives? And teens and our children, they feel their emotions it feels so intense for them. And so sometimes, I remember being called dramatic when I was younger, or sensitive, or whatever the case is, trying not to label them or say those things. Again, we've talked about creating a safe space is so important, and being non-judgmental. That's what I'll share for now.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Latoya. Awesome as usual. I just want to add a couple of quick things that you said. I want to piggyback a couple of things you said. When you're checking the room, I spent time, and Eric remembers this, I was PTA president at elementary school. Both our kids were there. And I spent a lot of time, did a lot of male involvement, a lot of stuff, but I got to speaking to the resource officer would come by and started doing different stuff. So as parents, something to think about. These kids are, like the toy said, they're very sneaky. So when you're going in, and everybody does the traditional look here and there, this and that, but they'll put false bottoms in Pringles cans. They will roll their socks folded. You think it's folded, but stuff's inside of those things. They'll stuff inside their little stuffed animals, different things of that. And this is even young children, elementary school, young children we're talking about. Remote controls, or especially like gaming controls, and they'll be like, oh, that control doesn't work. It doesn't work because they've taken out the inside and put some other stuff in there, whether it's drugs, whatever they're using is in those things. So you have to really, really do a search. And anybody that says, oh, that's my child's space, it's cool, you are deceiving yourself. You are doing a disservice to your child. Because as long as they're under your roof,
right,
you are responsible for them. So if you're not sad, you don't want to do it when they're there, then do it when they're not there. But the thing that you don't want to do, you don't ever want to be on the other side of a phone call regretting that you didn't do it. That's what you don't want. So, so Cam, come to you? What are some signs of teen depression and anxiety that you would want to add to what's been said, and then even I guess ways to, how do I want to say it? Maybe how ways to address it. Like I said, how, to ask, type of questions to ask maybe their child to kind of see when they start seeing those signs.
Yeah. So first, I got my own copy here. Eric, right quick. I just want to, thank you, by the way.
You're welcome.
I just want to reiterate what Eric shared about, say, us growing up, going to school versus our children going to school now. So he writes, when I was a teenager, our concerns were peer pressure, finding employment, choosing friends, avoiding drugs, academic pressure. This generation must contend with cyberbullying, an increase in standardized tests, the threat of school shootings, a national teacher shortage, the threat of mass shootings. Now, of those two, who's going to a safe school? Who grew up with the mindset that school is a safe place?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just take the home off the table right now.
Right.
If you don't feel safe in your home,
mm-hmm.
you're going to another place that you don't feel safe at.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a child, not an adult, you're using coping skills, which Eric mentioned, but how appropriate are those coping skills?
Mm-hmm.
And so a child who grows up with a parent or parents, because I just want to make this extremely clear, because there is a false narrative going around that children who come from single parent households are in some way defective.
No, not true.
Absolutely not. I've seen it with my own two eyes, and I'm not saying anybody's child is defective. Please do not say that I said that, because I did not. No judgments here. But I have seen adolescents, children, even as young as 4th, 5th grade, coming in from dual parent households, both are married, having the same issues that a child who's coming from a single parent household.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it might not even be their bio mom, their bio dad who's raising them. It might be their grandmother raising them. It might be a grandfather raising them. It might be an aunt or an uncle. So I need people to understand that it matters how the kind of household that the child is coming from, but it is not determined by whether or not it's a single parent or a dual parent household.
Right.
As we've seen in the comments, yeah, they got everything growing up, but they didn't have that emotional piece. So I just want to make that clear. Secondly, safe spaces are definitely, they're key, and it has to be in the home. And if you are watching this and you are sitting here having judgmental thoughts about everything you have done wrong or that you are labeling as being wrong, stop. And just say, from this point on, I'm going to do better. How do you do better? You plug in, you tap in to your child. From the time that they wake up, say something to them. Good morning. I'm so happy to see you. How did you sleep? Are you hungry? Before they walk out that door. And then when they come back in the door, I don't know who's coming home first, whether it's you or them coming in first. Regardless, plug in. How was your day? How everything that happened while you were at school today? It doesn't matter if you haven't had those conversations before, and you might get pushback, but I'm gonna tell you one thing, it will get worse before it gets better. You have to be consistent. You have to be
You're right.
consistent. Shape their behavior. Shape their behavior, because what's happening, a lot of kids are shaping the parents' behaviors, and the parents are becoming reactive. All hope is not lost. It's not. I promise you it's not.
Nope, it's not.
But we got to start treating our children, seeing them as the prizes that they are. Okay? The blessings that they are. Regardless of who their mama was or their daddy was. Okay? Because as you decided, both of y'all decided it was a good idea to get together and take 23 of your chromosomes and match them up.
Yeah.
To go half on a baby. Y'all decided that was a good idea.
Yep.
So how you gonna blame the child how they came out? No, absolutely not. Y'all looking at the wrong mirror. Okay, I'm done.
Appreciate. Yeah, like you said, they decided to say ain't nothing wrong with a little bump and grind. So, you know, here's the child. So we go to a few comments, and then here, I just want to add, you know, we were designed to be our children's parent, not our children's friend.
Yeah.
And that I see more and more, you know, oh, this is my broke best friend. This is my broke best friend. Your child is not your friend. Your child is your child. You are the parent because you were designed to be the parent. You gave birth, whether you're the father or the mother, you gave birth to this child. God put it orchestrated in that order. So stop being your child's friend and start parenting your child. So that said, we're going to go ahead and take a couple comments. And
Carl, I was gonna, if I could just add something.
Oh, go ahead, Latoya. I'm sorry.
Going along with what Cameron was saying, I just want to also share, it is okay to apologize to your children if you haven't been always, you know, showing empathy or listening to them. It is okay to apologize. Many times it's needed.
Yes.
And going with Carl, the comment that you said about the broke bestie, I also want to add, you know, I know there's a lot trending about gentle parenting. And what I really think gentle parenting comes down to versus parenting by the boomers, like my mom was a baby boomer. And the big difference, I think, is just using empathy and listening to your children's needs, because we grew up where our parents didn't always allow us to speak or listen. But gentle parenting is not being your child's bestie or giving them everything they need. Right. So I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah,
appreciate that.
Yeah, it's actually authoritative parenting, people.
Basically, yes.
Appreciate it. So yeah, that's good. It's true. It's true. So yeah, you know, sometimes we take a new term and run with it. You know, oh, gentle parenting. Okay, well, let's come on, my broke bestie. Let's go to the store. You know, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. So, but let's go ahead and jump into our comments because they are coming in. I'm gonna try to get as many as we can, and we're gonna go over a little bit tonight because I definitely want to touch on the last topic real quick.
All right. Hello, DBDS family. First of all, I would like for someone to read these very carefully, what I am about to write here. I hear that older people and young adults and young teenagers are always on depression and have anxiety. It has been a discussion for the longest. So the first thing that we people do is, oh, let's put my child in counseling. First thing that comes to mind, but I am going to tell you this. Read it and for once stop a moment. Just stop for 5 minutes and ask yourself whatever it is you want to ask yourself, and turn around and see your surroundings. I'm going to use caps, meaning I am not yelling. I am only wanting you to read it clearly. Read it clearly. Stop looking for a counselor or someone to help you with your mistake, parents. All this, folks, that have depression and anxiety is for one reason, and one reason only, is because you do not have Jesus Christ in your heart. Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not worth it telling people to get over it, as it's definitely something that they have been struggling with, and the only way to get it, or it's to lash out, mostly someone that you love deeply or care for. I believe that many kids today that do bully are lacking fathers. Fathers are walking out on their children, and same with mothers. Or it's a party scene day in, day out, or sexual abuse or drug addiction, etc. All these things play havoc on mental health issues. There's definitely a lot going on.
Yeah. Next. Okay.
I was bullied in high school. I didn't feel good about myself. It was hard for my family to understand me. Teachers didn't really know much. People wanted to fight me all the time, but I was encouraging people that fighting doesn't get you anywhere in life. But talking about things might help you understand more why the other person is feeling the way they do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Trying to see it from someone's perspective. Trying to understand. What is it? Seek first to understand, not to respond.
Right.
That is correct. That is correct. We appreciate y'all's comments.
Yeah.
Keep them coming, and we'll go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and then we come back. We're going to touch base on our last topic real fast and end up with our Jerry Springer moment. This is DBDS Live.
So many people are calling for police reform. And so because they're calling for police reform, they may not understand that there are many organizations who are already responding.
And I feel like you have to really get to know people, see if they share the same core values as you before you get involved with them.
I want to ask a question as to how we got to this place right here where mask wearing, where COVID-19, where public health is all politicized. I really want you all to think about this. How did we get to this particular point?
It's really a nice balance when femininity and masculinity can mix together and just create this awesome, experience.
And welcome back to DBDS Live. I'm here with Miss LaToya Watson, my brother Eric Leggett, and my co-host Miss Cameron Hillman. We are having a tough but needed discussion this evening, talking about the mental health of our children and how it affects relationships. Loving the comments that are coming in. It's been a phenomenal show so far. So we're going to jump into the last topic real quick, and so we can kind of keep some time, get straight to it. And the last one is talking about breaking general curses by cutting off toxic family. So one of the things I think we refuse to do is acknowledge when there's an issue. We know that there's an uncle that's been told or rumored to have touched his, somebody inappropriately, but yet we'll leave our children with that person. Mm-hmm. We know that there's, maybe a mother who was toxic to her own children, and then yet you leave your children with her only to find out now your children are dealing with the same things you're dealing with. You know, there is nothing wrong really with having to set boundaries or cut family off so you do not continue that trend with your own children. So I'm coming to you first, Eric. What are some things you think of when we say breaking generational curses by cutting off toxic family?
When I think about that, it's all about knowing the family member. You have to really know the family member. I was very, very careful who my daughters was around when they were little. And fortunately, in my family, my immediate family, I don't think there aren't any toxic. They're very loving people. But there were a couple of, I would say, some neighbors or friends or whatever. If they were around them, I was there with them also. And so you have to be very discerning and follow your gut, and you have to listen to what people are saying when they're around your children. And then you have to get into protective mode and supervise. I never let my daughters stay with people that I didn't feel comfortable with. I was always friendly, whatever have you. But if I was not comfortable with them, no, I did not leave my daughters in their presence for a significant amount of time. So when you're talking about toxic people, it's about being discerning. It's about following your gut. It's about listening to what's being said around your children. And if it's somebody that's always negative and everything like that, you want to really keep them away from those type of people, because you don't want these messages constantly imprinted in your children's minds. So I think it has a lot to do with supervising, listening, discerning, and following your instincts.
Appreciate that, brother. Well said. Well said. Latoya, coming to you next. Breaking generational curses by cutting off toxic family. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, what comes up first for me is doing things differently. We cannot continue to repeat unhealthy cycles, unhealthy patterns in our family. And so if I can encourage folks who are listening to think about your family, think about, as therapists, social workers, we always encourage people to do family trees. Do a family tree. Look at what unhealthy patterns do you see amongst your family, whether it's alcoholism, mental health stuff, depression, anxiety, divorces, like a lot of singleness, like all different things. I encourage people to look at, because we have to do things differently. Something else that I encourage people to do is, and this can be harder, but as your children get older, share things with your children so they don't repeat the same mistakes that you did. Don't allow your children to make the same mistakes you did. You want them to do things differently. You want them to be better. I have hard conversations with my son often because I don't want him to repeat certain choices that I made. And last thing I want to say is, don't be afraid to cut off toxic people, family or not, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father. We can't be afraid to cut off toxic people. And when I say toxic, people who can do harm to your children need you to protect them. They need you to protect them. Many of us wish that we had someone to protect us when we are younger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate that. Sorry, well said. Well said. Cameron, coming to you next.
So I heard something that was extremely, I guess you could say it made me more conscious of using generational curse. because, you know, growing up, that's all I heard. Generational curse, generational curse. And basically, it was, don't confuse generational curses with poor generational choices.
Mm-hmm.
The real curse is believing you are powerless to break these familial patterns. So, like what Eric said, be mindful about who you and your children are around. Like Latoya said, do something different. Protect your children. If you know that's a lion's den, do you want your toddler walking in it? And just because your child might be 6 feet tall at the age of 13, they are not a man. They're still a child. And they are not equipped emotionally, mentally, probably physically, to protect themselves. That's our job as their parent, to protect them. So where I stand on the whole generational curses, it's like, instead of calling it a curse, call it a choice. And just because your mother made that choice, your grandmother made that choice, all your aunts, your uncles, and everybody made that choice, that does not mean that is the choice you must make. If it doesn't feel right to you, doesn't feel right to the family vision that you have for your offspring, then do something different. You have that power to do that. Regardless of what someone says to you, you are not a child. If you got a baby, if you got a child, you got a house, you doing working, putting food on the table, you're not a child. And what is the Bible verse that talks about, when I became a man, I put away childish things? That goes for women too. When I became a woman, I put aside childish things.
Yeah, that's a okay. Yeah, that's deep. Like I said again, it's up to us to break the cycles. It's up to us to make the changes, and it's up to us, especially when you identify it. Sometimes we lack because of the blind spots some of us have sometimes. Even with this situation, sometimes we run into a place of where, well, I don't want to hurt, you know, my parents or my grandparents or my aunt, my uncle, my sister. We don't want to hurt them, or our best friend. We realize that they don't need to be around, and we're not realizing that we're doing more harm than good. And I think that's one of the things that makes it difficult. And I think sometimes this is why we continue to allow certain things to continue to permeate, because we're not willing to make the change, or we're more worried about somebody else and how they'll view us versus doing what we need to do, which we know is right. But again, like I said, sometimes we have a blind spot because we're not really seeing it, because we're worried about how others will view us versus how our child needs us with that. So, Toya, I think you said you had something coming to quack. We can take one quick question, Toya, and then we're going.
Okay. Let me just pull it up really quick. Yeah. So one of the questions I got was, how do you select a therapist for a child?
How do you select a therapist for a child?
I've personally done that. I can help. I can
go ahead,
help
Kim.
So the first thing I did was I went to my health insurance coverage to find out what therapists in our area basically, I guess, specialize in adolescence. And then within that specialty of adolescence, like where did they fall? Because you'll find some are heavy on the, say, when it comes to eating disorders or drug abuse, versus depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation / suicidal attempts. So for me personally, I went straight to my health insurance, the website. And from there, I was able to find, okay, what kind of therapist is my child going to be most comfortable with? Someone who resembles her mother or someone a little bit younger? So it allows you to do that nowadays versus, I don't know how it was back in the day, what, word of mouth? But you can do it that route, or consult with your child's pediatrician. They should be able to give you some recommendations.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate that. So at this point, let me see. Go, Tori, let's go. We'll go one more quick question, and then we're going to do the Jerry Springer moment. We'll squeeze in one more.
The other question I got was, how do you convince a child they should embrace therapy? I have some thoughts about that, but if anyone wants to share.
I remember when I was going through my divorce, I had, my youngest was struggling with some stuff, and he didn't want to go. He's here, he is playing football, all this different stuff, and he really wasn't embracing it. But I can tell he was off. I can see his performance on the field, his performance in the classroom, his mood, everything. And so what I ended up doing for me, I actually took him to one of my sessions and let him sit in and watch me go through a full session. And he saw it wasn't nothing that was going to bite him. He wasn't getting no shots. He wasn't, nothing crazy. And he was just like, when we came out, he was like, okay, Dad, because he got to see me on one end where I was struggling, going through the divorce, and where I was at that point. So then he went with me, and he was like, okay, I'm going to go do this, Dad. But that was just, that for me is what worked for me to get him to go. Even now I try to keep him going consistently, just like I said, just to have that therapist there on a regular basis, so that's kind of what my thought process. Anybody else? Tori, you want to throw yours out there?
I was just going to add, I've worked with children and teens where they didn't always want to talk. They didn't always want to do different games. You give it a try. I encourage parents to also be involved in the sessions, especially if your child is not as open. Communication is really important. So if your child isn't always open about things, it may be helpful to share some things with the therapist on what's going on, what could be helpful. But yeah, I say, I'm a little old school. Maybe this is not gentle parenting, but I say force them. Like, if there's stuff going on, you make them go. That's it. And you just see how it goes. They may enjoy it, they may not, but you won't know till you give it a try. I guess if you want to offer, I've seen parents do this before. They offer like small incentives if the child goes. But yeah, I say force them.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I agree with actually both. Definitely be involved. Personally, with my situation with my child, it was all of us in the family, like in the very first session, and we all gave our input. And then eventually, she bought in and she went to sessions, no big deal. And yeah, that was definitely a blessing. And then also what Latoya is basically saying is called like an aversion plan. But here's the thing with an aversion plan, it's like, no, this is what you need to do. You're going to go, blah, blah, blah. However, if the child does not do what they are supposed to do in terms of being engaged and being an active participant in the therapy, then they shouldn't be allowed certain things when they come back home. Cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of parents removing that immediately. Oh, okay, cool. Well, you know what? You're not safe. You're not having effective thoughts. That, you know what? You don't need to be communicating with your peers in that kind of state of mind. Basically, come back to a bed and a pillow.
Tough love.
Well, I will say, I will also, I love that. I will also say, I want to add this in. Sometimes it's not a good fit. So I do tell parents, like, you may need to try a therapist more than once. So sometimes kids don't engage because of the therapist style or their approach. So also be mindful of that.
You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
that piece.
Yeah, my youngest went through about 3 before he found one. We found one we agreed upon. I said that way. Yeah, we agreed upon, and she did a phenomenal job with him. So that said, we're gonna go ahead and jump into our Jerry Springer moment. I know we've run over. I appreciate everybody who's stuck around with us tonight. And if we didn't get to all your comments, I am so sorry, but it was just a lot of information out here. We'll try to look back in and try to respond to certain things if we can with that. So I'm gonna come to my sister Latoya first. What are your final thoughts for tonight?
Final thoughts. Try your best not to show judgment when you're having heart-to-heart moments with your children. I really encourage heart-to-heart and say that. If you've never done this before, put it out there. I'm trying something new. I really want to be more involved, be more connected, be patient with them. Sometimes it may take them time to express what they're feeling. They may feel a little nervous. They may feel scared. Don't try to be mindful of your facial expressions. Again, listen to them. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. Sometimes they'll just go on and on and on. You don't need to have the answers. Sometimes they just need a safe space for someone to listen to them. Try your best not to invalidate their feelings or minimize what they're feelings or say like, oh, that's ridiculous. Why would you feel that way? Just listen. Just listen. You don't even need to say anything. Just being present, just listening, show support if you want to put your hand close to them or again, look engaged. Nonverbals have so much power. But if you don't remember anything else, just trying your best to be a good listener and making them feel like they are seen, heard, and loved.
Well said. Appreciate it. Thank you. And coming to Eric next. What are your final thoughts for tonight's show?
Well, Miss Latoya stole everything I was about to say. It's all good, but I will add this. Get in the habit of, being part of that coping skill process. And what I mean by that is just take them for a ride, take them somewhere to have fun at an arcade, whatever. They need time to depress. And also, as far as coping skills, introduce healthy coping skills to them. Do some research, walking, exercise, going to see a movie, get them in the habit of when they feel stressed that they can turn to that. And as Miss Latoya just said, allow them to express themselves. Allow them to say what they have to say and don't force them, because eventually they'll come around. Trust me, I raised 3 daughters who are all teenagers, and I had to be very, very patient and wait for them to open up. But I had to be patient and wait. So I would just say to parents, take some time to check on them and be as positive as you can, as they're going through this stage in their life.
Appreciate that, brother. And to my fabulous co-host Cameron, what an awesome show tonight.
Yes.
This was really, really good. Touching hard, but like I said, definitely needed. So what are your final thoughts for tonight?
Absolutely. Definitely take what Miss LaToya put down, pick it up. Take what Mr. Eric said, what he put down, pick it up. Listen to them. Plug in. Validate their feelings. Just because you validate doesn't mean you co-sign. You're just saying, hey, I'm here. I'm listening. I want to understand. Help me help you, basically. And at the end of the day, recognize that being a parent is not static. Just because you parent them one way when they're, say, 0 to 5 years of age, doesn't mean that child is going to need that kind of parent from 6 to 10, from 11 to 16, on up. Just like your child is growing and evolving, you must meet them where they are at each developmentally or you've got to be developmentally appropriate in your parenting for where they are, because what worked at age 5, I promise you from experience, is not going to work at the age of 17. It's not. And since he didn't do it, I'm gonna do it. Buy this book. They're for you, parents, but the rest of it is for your child. So if you don't know how to start the conversation, this will help. This is their homework. This will get them in the practice of picking up a book that will help them. You could see this as their first self-development book, which so many adults pay thousands of dollars for when they get themselves in a bind. Start them off right. Pick it up. You can find it on our website.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, sis. So, I tell you, phenomenal show tonight. I thank all our guests for being on here and my fabulous co-host. I'm gonna say this. You know, one of the things I did with my sons, like I said, again, you're going through the family dynamic, the family's over, and their lives, they're trying to figure out how they're going to get through things. So I started a Man Up Monday, and not trying to make my boys, oh, you're going to be gruff. I just allowed them to come hour each or however long it lasted, just to talk whatever was on their mind, whatever they wanted to talk about. There was no, and with no boundaries, in the sense of they could discuss whatever they wanted to, and there was no judgment on my part. It was just keeping an open dialogue. And I look at that, doing that 7 years later, and I look at my sons now, there's nothing my sons won't come talk to me about. And I love that, because because I'm a safe place for them. Regardless if it's a mistake on their part, they're still going to call dad first. They're still going to talk to dad, because I gave them that place. I didn't care if they slipped and cussed. I didn't care if they wanted to talk about sex. I didn't care if they said they were smoking weed. There was no judgment in that conversation. That was open, free time for them to talk. Whatever else I need to do after that point is, I took it and did what I needed to if something came out with that. But that's what we have to do as parents. Make a safe place for your children to be able to talk to you without start yelling and screaming and throwing pots and pans and telling them, oh my God, you're just like your father and this, and let that mess go, because they'll never open back up to you ever again if you chastise them. Your words have power. Our tongue has the power of life and death. The way you speak to your child can give them more life or can send them closer to their death. You have to decide how to speak. And if you don't, you've got that amazing book right there. Get yourself some therapy yourself, get a coach in your life. to get you through the things you may be struggling with, past traumas, childhood traumas, that'll help you be able to help identify those things with your children and help them so that you guys can be a healthy and whole family in the community. So with that said, I want to thank my brother Mel for having this amazing DBDS platform and allowing me to host tonight. Brother Mel, we truly appreciate you and everything you're doing with this. I'm telling you, it's a game changer in society out there. It's different from all the jumping up and down on stage, yelling, bickering, bantering going on. Your vision is helping to change lives and families one at a time. So with that said, I appreciate y'all, and stay tuned next week. Queen Takeover.
Carl, can I just say one more thing, please?
Go ahead.
I know we were talking about adolescents, teenagers tonight, but I want to speak to the adults whose inner child we spoke to tonight. Just know that you are worthy enough. You've always been worthy. And just because the adults who were in charge of you growing up, just because they didn't say it to you doesn't mean you are not. So from this point on, whenever you get in front of that mirror, I need you to say, I am worthy. I am good enough just as I am. I am loved just as I am. I have always been loved just as I am. Just because they couldn't see it doesn't mean I'm not it.
Awesome. Amen. But that's it. Again, you can rewatch the show on Spotify. I'm trying to think everything that's on there. YouTube Live, you can go back to and watch it. You can go back to Facebook Live and watch it. So Amazon Music, there we go. Roku, we're on the Roku channel and Amazon Fire Stick. If you go on there, you put that in. We're on there. It's just amazing how we're growing. I see a vision of us having our own channel one day, and just doing the thing we got to do. So it's coming.
Yes.
So we appreciate y'all, and as always, from the DBDS family, good night.
Love y'all.